Could conscious intimacy practices be the secret to healing your codependency? Hello, gorgeous souls. I'm Unique Val. I'm a trauma-informed certified intimacy coach. And for the past 6 years, I have been educating soul deep lovers just like you on how a conscious approach to intimacy can actually help us to access altered states of consciousness that are more receptive to new beliefs, actually allow us to imprint new thought patterns and new habits, and takes advantage of our brain's neuroplasticity, allowing us to rewire our brains. I'm like cheesing so hard. This is so important if you are recovering from trauma, from CPTSD, if you are codependent. You right now have these hardwired patterns, and it can be very tricky to try to create new patterns, think differently. So I actually stumbled across this in my early 20s when I didn't even know what issues I had. I didn't even know how codependent I was. I didn't even know how much CPTSD I had. I didn't even know what was really causing my depression. I had my hunches, but I just didn't have any awareness of the bulk of work that I needed to do. And these erotic trance states became an unsuspecting, game-changing tool on my healing journey that I just had no idea that it would be for me. I'm just so eternally grateful for all the ways, all the elements of my journey that led me to conscious intimacy and led me to Tantra, because I didn't know how crazy effective these tools were. And they certainly weren't things that I was recommended in therapy. This is how erotic trance states can help you heal. And so when you hear erotic trance states or Tantra, what do you think of? Do you think of fringe, witchy rituals under the moon, in the woods, with a man in a grid of crystals and twigs? Crystal grids and charm and sage, while a woman tries to compel her lover to worship her for all of eternity. Someone somewhere is probably doing that ritual. And you know what? More power to you. I support women's rights and women's wrongs. There's probably a reason. There's probably a reason. She's probably got a reason. Somewhere in her reasoning, there's something that I support. But no, that's not what this is about, though I completely support erotic rituals under moonlight. Don't knock it until you try it. So I refrain judgment. But what I'm specifically referring to is a way of approaching intimacy and the self that actually stems from the Tantric and Neo-Tantric traditions. Originating in India in the 6th century, Tantra is less of a religion and more of a system of technologies developed to help you achieve both spiritual liberation, enlightenment, and worldly pleasure. And I don't use that word technology lightly. We often think of our ancestors, humans from the past, as being less knowledgeable, less intelligent than we are. But what I found in the tantric philosophies and practices was actually a way of healing and achieving psychological integration that is quite similar to many therapeutic practices in our modern study of psychology. In fact, you often see science pulling from these amazing spiritual traditions, meditation, mindfulness practices. This has all become very almost prescriptive in our current day and age. But in the context of these systems, yoga isn't just for mobility. It's not just for fitness. Connecting to the divine isn't supposed to just take you out into the ethers. It's actually meant to ground you into this reality and give you a full spectrum, a full scope methodology for navigating life and becoming fully self-actualized. So at the core of classical Tantra are mechanisms to help you experience both mukti and bhukti, that's spiritual liberation and pleasure. Hey, so if you can take a quick moment before we continue into the rest of the video to tap the buttons below, hit like, subscribe, and maybe even share this video with a friend if you feel that this message is also for them. It really helps the channel to grow, and I really appreciate it. Okay, back to the video. And this was a very big deal for me because I came across Tantra in my early 20s when I was trying to heal. I was expanding beyond, felt like the confines of my religion. I felt that the love that I was meant to embody was bigger than the love that I was seeing represented within my religion. And I was also seeing how those religious beliefs, they were actually having a very negative impact on my mental health and my self-esteem. Because I came from a religious tradition where the body and the spiritual were separated, anything to do with the body, the bodily needs, desires, intimacy, sexuality were often shamed, and everything else felt separate. So spirituality, connecting to God, higher being, and everything that was good and pure and beautiful, right? Everything connected to the divine was seen as separate and something to reach for, but that you can never achieve until death. It was a pretty gothic, not gonna lie, it was kind of emo. Looking back, I kind of feel like I was going through an emo phase. I think the harshest critique for that religion is it's sort of like a death cult. And in that depressed state, I didn't feel that I would reach a place of full worthiness until after death. And my depression fed off of those beliefs. And likewise, my codependency also fed off of those systems of understanding. It fed off of having shame around sexuality, shame around my body, shame around pleasure. And so I was introduced to Tantra, and really this was a reintroduction. I got my bachelor's in religion from Princeton University, and I first encountered Tantra in a Buddhism class, and seeing, these figures, these erotic but highly spiritual depictions of what may be considered more erotic art that were actually religious art was, I didn't really know where to place that at that point in my life. I was fascinated. I felt a pull towards it, but I also felt a deep silencing and like, I can't be interested in that, and I can't be curious about that. But as I've found myself exploring spirituality outside of my religion and wanting to heal and wanting to be kinder to myself and love myself, I came across Tantra. And it really fits snugly with what I personally knew to be true at the time, which was that the divine is good, it loves all, and my body is sacred, and there is nothing that, the divine is shaming me for having to do with my body. Pleasure isn't bad. Having possessions isn't bad. I just didn't resonate with that anymore. And so Tantra found me in a place where I already had resonance with these core principles. What Tantra and these healing erotic trance states allowed me to do was release a lifetime of guilt around pleasure, around physical touch. In my previous videos on recovering from codependency, I shared how guilt and shame are two of the three core emotional drivers that keep us stuck in codependency. The third is obligation. And Tantra and these erotic trance states gave me a space to actually release my fear of the consequences. Tantra and these erotic trance states gifted me tools to finally address and heal my relationship with shame and guilt. And honestly, those tools saved my life, because I would later find myself in narcissistic, abusive relationships. And though healing from them took years, I actually was able to exit those relationships pretty quickly. In fact, it came to a surprise to those narcissistic individuals. And that's because when they tried to tug on my codependent programming using shame and guilt, I had already done the work of unraveling my triggers around that through my tantric practice. And likewise, it also supported me in the healing from those relationships. You'll find conscious intimacy and conscious sensuality woven into every bit of my work and all of the practices and tools that I share. I know people in my life who never recovered from codependency. I've known people who feel stuck in codependency and remain that way until their very last days. It is not an easy thing to heal. And I truly give Tantra so much credit for my own spiritual growth, what the scientific study of psychology is now becoming aware of, right? That trauma is stored in the body. Spiritual traditions like Tantra and indigenous traditions have known this for centuries. We as a species, we have known this. The body, the mind, the soul, our spiritual heart, they're all connected. Tantric meditation, breathwork, asanas, they offer entry points into the subconscious mind. They actually allow a decrease in cortical control and give us an opportunity to reprogram our minds on a deeper level. And likewise, the erotic trance states that you'll find in Neo-Tantric practices speak to the oldest parts of our brain. In Neo-Tantric practices, they speak to the oldest parts of our brain. And just because they're the oldest, we often think of them as, our reptilian brain. These are lower level functions, but it's these very lower level functions that are ruling your life. Remember, codependency is a fearful state. When you're living from a state of fear, when you are struggling from CPTSD, you're recovering from narcissistic abuse, you don't have a handle on your codependency. These are the parts of your brain that are ruling your life. And they're not going to let go of the reins until you are safe. They are wired to help you survive. And so it's going to keep you in survival mode until it feels safe enough to allow you to enter what is known as the ventral vagal state. This is where you can actually access all of those higher functions of your modern brain. You can think creatively, you have access to your inner genius, you feel well resourced enough to actually reach out for support instead of isolating out of a need for protection. As I received my coaching certification in these tantric approaches to healing and psychological integration, it became very clear to me that this wasn't just woo-woo fairyland, but actually powerful and therapeutic techniques that will absolutely change your life. This goes beyond affirmations or, bubble baths. I think those are all wonderful self-care practices. But if you want to experience how to actually work with your body to release those holding patterns, release that stuck trauma, rewire your nervous system for pleasure and for safety, then I cannot recommend a little sex magic under the full moon. Okay, just kidding. But also, don't knock it till you try it. Okay, so if you are curious about this approach, you want to learn how these techniques can help you in your codependency recovery journey, then I'm going to invite you to check out the link in the description below. I've got a free breakthrough session waiting for you. And if you're watching this video In the month of November 2025, I have just opened doors for my New Year's offer. I'm doing something I've never done before. This is a deep coaching healing intensive 4 months, extended healing sessions, more than double of what you usually get in my standard 3-month coaching package. I've really tailored this healing intensive to those who want to replenish their nervous system, who maybe feel they're on the brink of burnout, or maybe you're already there. You've been living in survival mode for so long, you don't know how to curate and return to that sense of felt safety within the body. This specific opportunity is for you. You can check out the full breakdown of each session that's included. If you're recovering from narcissistic abuse, I've really catered these specialty sessions specifically for you. We're gonna dive deep. I'm gonna hold your hand through all of it, and you will emerge renewed. 4 months of deep replenishment, deep healing. And so if you're able to gift yourself these next 4 months of deep healing, dedicate this time to you so you can feel more than, I want to say feel like you again, but we're going to expand and go even beyond that. So if you want to say yes to that journey, check out the details below. Orgasmic Rebirth 2026. Let's do it. Go ahead and tap the button below. And if you haven't already, or in addition, you can also sign up for our Soul Deep Lovers Club. It's only $12 a month. And like I said, I infuse every single one of my offerings, my practices, with the wisdom and the teachings that I've gained from Tantra, conscious intimacy, and these beautiful traditions. So come on into either or both. I'm so thrilled to work with you. All right, if you have questions, pop them in below and I'll try to get to them either by commenting, responding in the comments, or creating a video in the future. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to hit like and subscribe. And I hope to see you next week, because we are getting into the holiday season. And so I know this is a really sensitive time for those of us who struggle with codependency. So I want to give you some tools to navigate that starting next week. So be sure to hit subscribe and tune in, because I've got some life-saving, mind-saving tools for you so that you can keep your peace and stay grounded this holiday season. 4 months of deep replenishment, deep healing. We're gonna dive deep. I'm gonna hold your hand through all of it, and you will emerge renewed. You can check out the full breakdown of each session that's included. If you're recovering from narcissistic abuse, I've really catered these specialty sessions specifically for you. If you want to say yes to that journey, check out the details below. Orgasmic Rebirth 2026. Let's do it.